Charl, tell us a little bit more about the unique style and architecture about these mountain homes.
So I'm going to read you what the Mail and Guardian was pleased to say in an article about this project. Style is the key marker of the project. The home's linear volumes and unadorned facades record a distinctive brand of Pretoria Modernists, notably architects Norman Eaton and Wynand Smit. Now that's academic language. In layman's language, modernism is a style that's global, and these buildings in certain ways are modernist. So modernism is characterized by, for example, linear lines. You'll see the horizontal roofs, the elevations or the facades, square and rectangular design elements, for example, square panels of brick. And modernism is also characterized by an absence of applied decoration. So what is necessary is there. You'll see steel, you'll see brick, but nowhere will you see applied decorations. The building is stripped, bare, and minimalistic. However, how these buildings differ from international modernism, why these buildings are regional and respond to their very specific environment. International modernism tends to be extremely slick, polished, smooth. Think mirrored surfaces, think reflective surfaces. But what we have here is a very deeply African approach to the buildings. These buildings are tactile. They are rough to the touch. They are colorful. They have Africa's colors. And that makes these buildings, as much as they are part of the international movement, it makes them very much located right here in Pretoria, South Africa, centered in Africa.
Charl, tell us a little bit more about the materials used and also the reason why these materials.
So before I speak about my choice of materials, I want to take one step back. Initially in the project, I had one concern, and my concern was my personal design taste is modernist. So as we've just said, clean lines, uncluttered, no applied decoration. And that is what the building is very much about, these buildings. However, the client's taste in terms of furniture is very much decoration, antique furniture, decorative objects. And I was wondering, how are we going to bridge that possible gap? And then the client said something to me. This was the wife. She said to me, Charl, my only prerequisite is you choose materials that are authentic. I don't want one material to pretend to be another material. I want the material to be what it is. Now that's one of the basic principles of modernism, and that's when I thought, bingo. Now we have a common point of departure from which I can start working towards a design. So what I did is I chose for the exterior of the building, I chose materials that are simple, relatively inexpensive, and need absolutely no maintenance. And the first of those choices was the brickwork that we use for much of the house outside, in combination with concrete outside. So this is typically the brick that is also on the exterior of these buildings. This is so-called select kiln stock, which means it's actually the leftovers when they bake face brick. That which remains is what we see here, and it's extremely inexpensive, and I find it beautiful. It's rustic, it's rough, it's uneven, also incredibly strong. So my first choice for the whole of the project exterior walls, these bricks and concrete. My second choice, I had to choose the aluminium for windows and doors, and there I chose black. It just seemed to complement the bricks very well. Now, obviously, once you have black window frames on the exterior and you move inside, you also have black window frames. My third major choice were the exteriors, the steel balustrades in pitch black, and that very much set the tone for the exteriors. Rough brick, concrete, black steel.
Charl, quite noticeably is the continuity of the materials that you used on the outside of the building and bringing that into the interior spaces as well.
I have some black elements on the inside. For example, the floor is close to black, not quite black. It also has some grey in it, it has a texture in it, but it's a very dark floor. One of the choices I made was I wanted my interiors to be quite dark for multiple reasons, but the one is we're up in a mountain, there's extreme light, there's no plants to absorb that light. And with a white interior, you very easily develop glare, which you don't want. The other reason is the client's taste in furniture is very eclectic. Multiple period pieces, antiques, decorative objects. In a sense, the interiors, although they are modernist, they are furnished like a Victorian drawing room, almost overstuffed. And there a dark space is much more sympathetic to the furniture. So once I had the dark floors in here, I decided to have some built-in furniture in a matte aluminium grey look, and that's the built-in furniture. And what I also did, I introduced a couple of chocolate brown walls to complement the antique pieces. So really, this was a juggling game. On the one hand, the interiors are modernist in terms of, for example, using silver for cabinetry. But on the other hand, they are almost retro with the antique furniture, with the brown walls. And there's a balance here, there's a dance between the old and the new. And also the way that we position brand new built-in furniture with, next to it, antique pieces. And I specifically made sure there's a nook, hook or cranny for every antique piece. By mingling the old and the new, there's a balance, and the old pieces are celebrated and come to their right.
Charl, in this kitchen you're a genius with small spaces, turning that into functional spaces.
Thank you. Yes, well, the earth is small, whereas from the outside these buildings seem to be palatial, monumental. Once one is inside, for example here in the kitchen, it is a very intimate space. And this room, for example, is essentially a full kitchen, a full scullery, and a full laundry. Whatever one needs in a 4 or 5 bedroomed house is here, and it works. Circulation works, and it feels comfortable. It does not feel constrained. So this table here is a crossover between a butcher's block and a kitchen table. I designed this, a specialist craftsman manufactured this. The top is granite, and we found this piece in a quarry with that rough edge, and I said to my craftsman, please keep that edge, I love that beautiful edge. And then this counter is on top of a very sturdy steel frame, and The steel frame is on top of those caster wheels. You need to be able to move this table at times. Some of the appliances in this room, for example, here's a dishwasher. You need to be able to move those pieces when they need maintenance. So this table has to be mobile. Then again also, because it's been designed that you can stand and cut at it, you'll see it has as good as the same height as the normal working countertops. We needed chairs with extra height. They're sort of in between a normal chair and a bar chair. Very careful, what we call ergonometrics, the science of the human body's sizes and proportions. These chairs, by the way, were not specially made. I found these chairs in a second-hand shop. These are laboratory chairs. And they were a dark brown, and we then had them stained black to match this granite top. So, here in the corner, we have what seem to be two more cupboard doors, but in fact is a single door leading onto a walk-in pantry. And the pantry has a counter, so one can do messy prep work on that counter, and if you are receiving visitors and there's no time to wash up, you close the door and your visitors are none the wiser and are received into a clean, tidy kitchen. So one has a double story and it steps down with a mountain. One has a composite of 6 to 7 stories for each of the two buildings. The result is that there are roofs and balconies galore. Multiple roofs, multiple balconies. Right now I'm sitting on the roof of the main house, and behind me are the views. On each and every level there is seating. So my client is very sentimental, and I see that as a positive attribute. He acts from his heart. And this little set, decades old, was literally going to pieces. So rather than replace it, we recycled this. I found a craftsman who put back together all of these bits and pieces of steel. The tiles that had come loose, ceramic tiles, handmade, these were reinstated. And how lovely is this? The little set is still in use. with a composite of 6 or 7 stories for each of the 2 buildings, and with multiple roofs and balconies. We have a lot of steel balustrading. What I didn't want is a regular rhythm, a design that kind of follows one predictable pattern. It gets a little bit boring where you use a lot of balustrading. So what I designed here is an irregular rhythm. I gave the master craftsmen who made these balustrades a number of options how to achieve that unpredictable rhythm. We may have a single L-shaped piece. We may have 2 L-shapes side to side, and the L-shapes turn facing this way, the L-shapes turn facing that way, and in this way we create an unpredictable rhythm, and it casts really beautiful shadows that give the building extra depth and dimension. So here at this counter, the under-counter doors have been designed to match the balustrade. On the roof, this steel screen behind me serves 3 functions. Firstly, it hides the outlet, a condensator, of an air conditioning unit below us. Secondly, it hides the satellite dish. And lastly, it provides a backdrop to this focal point where these custom-made concrete planters have beautiful indigenous African fire sticks plants in them. So 1 screen, 3 functions. Usually service ducts are not a design element in most buildings, but in this building even the service duct is a beautiful object. Behind this steel door we have water supply, sewerage, and witness the tap. Each and every balcony has water, which is a prerequisite for successful landscaping. Let's start off with this tree right behind us. It's a Witstencote, and when a neighbor and my client were having a dispute about this and that, and were negotiating an out-of-court settlement, the one thing they agreed on is both of them wanted to keep the tree. So I sourced a specialist. The specialist came in, we thinned the tree's leaves so there's less volume, and the specialist shaped the form of the tree. Now what that means is the wind now moves through the tree rather than grips the tree, and that secures the tree, so we were able to keep it.
And what about a real garden for this property?
Well, between the 2 buildings we have a 6-meter clear space. It's a servitude in favour of council. One's not allowed to build buildings there, and this we have turned into cascading gardens, and we had to terrace those gardens on account of the slope. And I brought in a wonderful woman, Tshwane Williams, Petalfair Nursery. Now Tshwane specialises in indigenous plants, and I said to her, Tshwane, I have a tiny space, but in that tiny space I want the African version of an English garden. I want it wild, shrubby, as we say in Afrikaans, deurmekaar, and I want to use water-wise indigenous plants only. In winter we want a flowering garden all of the time, and we want an ecosystem. we want insects, we want butterflies. We have all of that. And that garden is a thing of beauty. And visually we draw the neighbour's trees, the street's trees in. You don't read the boundary of this earth when you arrive. What you read our tiny garden, and it seems to continue, flow into the neighbours' gardens, into the beautiful trees on the streets. So as much as we have a tiny garden on the actual earth, the holistic feeling is one of expansive gardens and spaces. The vegetable gardens, that was a bit of a story. There's a double garage excavated into the mountain, and we looked down onto that double garage. And initially my thought was we would have a succulent garden there, and we did start the succulent garden. It just did not feel quite right. One day I saw raised vegetable gardens elsewhere. You know what raised vegetable gardens are, where you build a planter and then at kind of knee height you plant your veggies. And I said to my client, I somehow think that's a better idea. We asked the builder to return to site, build those planters. We had to re-involve the engineer. There's a scientific calibration of the weight of both the planters built from bricks and the soil that we filled those planters with, 600 grams to 1 litre. And you have to have very good water outlets so that your rainwater, your storm water dissipates fully. If the water builds up in those planters, that's a tremendous weight. 1 litre of water weighs 1 kilogram, and you could literally cause the roof of the garage to collapse. So it was quite a scientific and prolonged period to engineer this. It took about 6 months. But finally we had our planters, now we have our vegetables. And what I love is the vegetables have become a design focal point. Up on the roof, down on any of the balconies, you look down on the vegetable gardens. They become something of beauty that you admire. It's not hidden in a backyard. And since we've had the vegetable gardens, one cuts veggies for friends, for visitors. It's gifts. People love the vegetable gardens. It's a winner.